We are JHM and this is the pre-production presentation for Worcester Wasteland. The goals of the game are to keep patients alive and run the hospital. This is gained through short-term goals by collecting drugs and keeping staff alive. The game takes place during an alternate 19th century during the 1860s and is based around the infirmary and the surrounding Worcester area. Historic events from the infirmary and personnel will be used to give the game some historic value, context, and learning value. The alternate history part comes in when we introduce our antagonistic race of monsters, the Shroud, who have taken over the world. The infirmary will still be treating patients, but due to the Shroud and looting, is now short of supplies. The game's events are generated randomly and through gameplay, so other than the basic setup, the game will not have a traditional story, but will instead create the story as the game progresses, with the daily report being an opening scene and dramatic events ranging from random events to the actual action gameplay, and positive events including finding drugs, successful nighttime runs, and patients being cured. There is no one concluding incident, but an end to many little stories, the death of a valued staff member, the curing or losing of a patient, etc. Some characters we have picked to include in the game are listed here, with real events that could affect the gameplay. One example being Mr. Knapp and his ducks being removed as a character and event taken from real life and added to the game. The core gameplay hasn't really changed since the previous presentation. The game is still played via a 2D top-down perspective, with the player picking a staff member and location they wish to visit. The action portion of the game is where the player collects the required drugs and resources. By limiting the player's carry capacity and with the looming permanent death of a character, players are forced to pick and prioritize what they pick up and take with them. Characters do have useful skills such as picking locked doors or moving faster, and any character caught by the Shroud will be killed off and permanently lost, adding tension to the game. According to Fabricatore, fun is attained via the cycle of information gathering, analyzing the information, making a decision, and interacting with the game world. This fits in perfectly with our design, as the players provided information with the daily report. They will analyze this information and decide on what actions need to be taken, and take these actions in the action portion of the game, not to mention the constant information gathering and analysis done in real time while weaving around the monsters and collecting resources. Bartle's taxonomy of players mainly looks at multi-user dungeon players, but can be applied to gamers in general. While killers and socializers are drawn to multiplayer games mainly, we can cater to explorers and achievers. Explorers can immerse themselves in the alternate history and should enjoy the search for items, while achievers will enjoy the challenge found in keeping the hospital running and surviving the wasteland. They can also compare their best runs with that of other players. The game contains names and events from the infirmary's history, and the hospital will be treating real ailments of the time such as cholera and smallpox with genuine treatments and drugs of the time. By making the player collect the right drug to treat an ailment, they are learning through necessity of gameplay and not just memorizing facts. This contextualizes the learning, which according to Shapiro is far more effective. Everything in the game is learnt for the sake of progressing and being able to better perform in the game. The facts learnt all have plenty to do with the story of the game or just progressing. Our core simulation orchestration is based around designs from our engines used last year. The game and engine themselves will use a singleton pattern with a manager for each individual function, such as the scene manager, render manager, etc. Our monster AI is state-driven, but a simplified version of the AI thought process is as follows. They will follow a patrol. Upon seeing the player, they will chase them until they either lose the player or catch them. Should they lose the player, they will continue to chase for a short amount of time and return to their patrol routes. Should they catch the player has lost.
A quick review of the features. The game will be top-down, stealth-based, and set at night. The player will read reports and take actions based on the reports. The action part of the game will involve avoiding the Shroud, who are the antagonistic bad guys. This GIF is from our prototype. The player is seen ducking and weaving to avoid the enemies and collecting the resources while he does so. Balance is key in our game. We don't want the game to be too easy with an abundance of resources to find, but we also don't want it to be too hard with a lack of resources. The AI should be able to sense the player, but we need to make it so it's not too easy for them to do so. The player class is also to be balanced, so each player class has its own benefits and drawbacks. There are a number of risks included with balancing the game. The game can get repetitive if we don't vary the levels, and the enemy view counts and their proportionate size to the rooms is also a risk. All of these risks are being fine-tuned and looked at by us using our digital prototype. Research suggests that contrary to popular belief, the male to female ratio in games is approximately even, 56% being male and 44% being female. It has also been found that the largest reason for people playing and buying games is an interesting story or premise, and that about 29% of people enjoy playing action games. Shell suggests that young males prefer mastering a game, whereas females prefer the real-world issues within the game. Adams also says that although you can't make a game that appeals to everyone, it is best to remove all material that would exclude certain target audience groups. From what's been said on previous slides, researchers found that adding a story to a game provides emotional satisfaction and adds a sense of purpose or context. Stewart also suggests that disproportionate feedback and rewarding the player will further engage them with your story. The core gameplay element to our game is stealth. There have been many stealth games over the years that we can draw inspiration from, such as Metal Gear games or Commandos 2. Commandos 2 having view counts that we will be using. Our game also includes roguelike elements such as pseudo-random map generation and permadeath characters. FTL and This War of Mine both have roguelike elements of permadeath, and games such as The Binding of Isaac and Spelunky have very good random map generation.